When somebody's the president of the United States, the authority is total. And that's the way it's got to be.
But it is true that it's up to the governors to make decisions about the executive orders that we've put in place.
We don't have a king, we have a president.
Who's the boss during a pandemic? This is the InsideEdition.com coronavirus news for April 14th, 2020. President Trump and prominent governors are spatting over when lockdown orders are lifted and who gets to say so. Illinois' governor spelled it out in a press conference.
We want to lift these orders as soon as we can. We want to get things back to more normal as soon as we can. But one thing that we have to pay attention to is what direction are these curves going, and what is the advice that we're getting from, again, the scientists and the doctors who know more about immunology and about all the issues of COVID-19 than an elected official who's not a doctor.
New York's governor put it more bluntly.
It's not the law, it's not the Constitution. We don't have a king, we have a president.
The president disagrees.
The authority of the president of the United States having to do with the subject we're talking about is total.
Governors are assembling multi-state councils to make decisions, while the White House is forming its own committee on reopening the economy. It's a battle that will likely continue, despite First Lady Melania Trump's call for goodwill.
We are thinking of you, and we are all in this together.
Elsewhere in Washington, D.C., the National Cathedral broadcast a message of thanks to healthcare workers. U.S. healthcare will soon be getting support in the form of coronavirus tests. In South Korea, workers load test kits into a shipping container. The 600,000 tests are on their way to the U.S. However, healthcare workers in Mexico City held a protest. They're demanding more personal protective gear and say they're not getting the resources they need. Things were more subdued in Sri Lanka. The country celebrated its New Year this week, but the holiday mood under lockdown was far from joyous. According to Johns Hopkins University, the number of reported cases of COVID-19 worldwide is nearly 2 million. And here's more coronavirus coverage from the InsideEdition.com team. Some good news.
Doctors and nurses hope their smiling faces will provide much-needed comfort to COVID patients. This respiratory therapist in San Diego came up with the idea. He put a big laminated photo of himself smiling on the outside of his personal protection gear and shared his photo on Instagram. Now other healthcare workers like this Brooklyn doctor are joining the movement.
I thought it would make them feel better if they just knew there was a real person in there.
Dr. Lena Soni covers up from head to toe while working on a COVID ward.
I couldn't help but feel like they were almost getting scared of me in my suit. And so I just felt like maybe just putting them at ease, like by seeing it like a picture of me. The patients really had a wonderful connection to it. I think they deserve to see just normal people around them.
Hi, guys.
Actor John Krasinski is surprising these Boston healthcare heroes. The Red Sox is giving them 4 season tickets for life. They also visited Fenway Park, where they threw out the first pitch of the indefinitely delayed 2020 season.
Now, Stephanie Officer with a story about creative quarantining.
I am working on a story about a guy named John Griffin. John Griffin got so stir-crazy that he thought to himself, I climb the flights of my 3-story home 800 times a day. I must have climbed the equivalent of the height of Mount Everest by the time this whole quarantine thing is over. But then he actually did it, and let me tell you, you'd probably be surprised at what kept him going and what was able to maintain him throughout the whole process.
For more on the coronavirus pandemic, visit InsideEdition.com.
From Wuhan to the world, COVID-19 has gone global, killing tens of thousands and terrifying millions.
我前面是病毒，我后边是中国的法律和行政力量。
Meanwhile, another virus has emerged. The symptoms: suppression, misinformation, and panic.
If China was an open, transparent, democratic nation, then this whole thing might not have happened.
101 East investigates the fight for truth, in a time of contagion. Zhang has a lot of time to think these days.
怎么说呢？就是一开始我那个时候我有一点点怵，确实有一点点怵，因为不知道怎么办。那个时候确实有一点害怕心理。现在
He's a resident of Wuhan, the Chinese city at the center of the COVID-19 outbreak. Quarantined in a school dormitory, he's unable to interact with anyone around him. When he speaks to us, it's via social media, his only contact with the outside world.
政府现在采取全部漏网的政策，就是所有的。
During the cold winter month of last December, Zhang was working as a kitchen hand. Like the rest of Wuhan, he had no idea that a deadly virus had invaded his city.
当时我们餐饮行业都有一个习惯，到汉口这边都全部到华南海鲜市场去买菜。当时在元月1号的时候，就华南海鲜市场就封了，就是封闭了。当时就传说那里得了肺炎，有的也传出了肺炎病人。但是当时的就是这个我个人感觉这个事情，怎么有肺炎出来了，就没有怎么特别的感觉。
The market closure was the first clue that something was amiss. Not that Wuhan's residents were officially told anything. But doctors at Wuhan's Central Hospital started to share their concerns about a virus similar to the deadly SARS, or severe acute respiratory syndrome. One of them was Dr. Li Wanliang.
There are 7 confirmed cases of SARS at Huanan Seafood Market. They are being isolated in our hospital's emergency department in Houhu Hospital District.
Be careful. Our chat group might be shut down.
The latest news is it's been confirmed they are coronavirus infections, but the exact virus is still being identified. Don't circulate the information outside of this group. Tell your family and loved ones to take caution.
The authorities were not happy. On January the 3rd, Li was summoned to Wuhan's Public Security Bureau and forced to confess to making false statements. But by then, it was too late. Dr. Wanliang's warning had begun to spread, just like the virus.
当时我就有一点点慌，我说完了，这还在上班怎么办呢？我们每天就接触这些客人。当时我们酒店就采取一个模式的，所有人必须戴口罩，而且戴的是2层口罩。
在不明原因的病毒性肺炎。
As the month progressed, so did the number of cases. Then, on the 20th of January, the government finally confirmed what many suspected. People were spreading the disease. The news couldn't have come at a worse time. China was preparing to mark the Lunar New Year holiday, its biggest festival of the year. Just 3 days later, Wuhan, a city of 11 million people, was locked down. It was a dramatic move.
封城那一下来说，当时觉得，哎呀，怎么搞得还封城呢？因为后来发生了这么严重的事情嘛，对不对？当时我个人还觉得，这个封城怎么不早一点？
So you think Wuhan should have been shut down sooner?
对，我们老百姓的耳朵里面去，可以导致的在无知的情况下去采买年货而发生的感染。
我感觉我们应对危机的能力。
Even Wuhan's mayor, Zhao Jingwang, admitted that the news about the virus should have been released earlier. But he says his hands were tied.
我只获得这个信息以后，授权以后，我才能披露。
But for Zhang's family, it was already too late. His mother was feeling tired. She had a fever and was coughing.
因为医生当时给我们说的就是，你母亲是90%高度疑似新冠肺炎，但是没有核酸制剂，我现在不能确诊，不能确诊，也就是说不能收入院，不能当新冠肺炎收入院。然后我就在车里面坐着，靠一下，坐一下，靠一下，坐一下，就是煎熬等待。像这种情况下，你说哪有不担心的呢？
The doctors advise Zhang to quarantine his family.
但是我想一下，我家里就是5口人嘛，正常5口人，就是我父母是一间房，我们一家3口又是一间房，还有一个客厅，怎么办呢？家里的环境，在家里隔离是不可能的，我就唯一想一个办法。
Desperate to protect his loved ones, Zhang had to improvise, turning his small van into a makeshift isolation zone for his mother. In Wuhan's freezing winter, it was not an easy decision.
待了3天，后来政府就通知我们把母亲送到隔离点。
His mother eventually recovered, but then his father fell ill, and Zhang was taken into quarantine by the local authorities.
4个小时才能打上。
In another part of the city, Zhu Luping is also in quarantine. Since her father was diagnosed with COVID-19, she's been isolated at home with her mother.
我们就是我们所有的人都希望都希望每天早上一醒来就会像从前一样的生活，但是我醒来了大概48天都没有恢复到原来的生活，我才觉得。
Zhu has regular checkups with doctors via an online system.
我们确诊的病人家里面会有一套那个监护仪，一套监护仪，然后他的耳温，每天测体温，然后血压还有血氧，他的数据联网实时会传，就是我们这边检查了以后，然后实时会传到社区的那个医生那里。
Zhu is grateful for the free healthcare and quarantine facilities the government's providing, but she believes her father got sick because the media was slow to report the disease's infectious nature.
当时的舆论导向就是这个病毒就不是很严重，所以说父母然后不是很警惕。
3, 2, 1, go
Even such mild criticism is rare in today's China, where the government has always controlled the message, and state media provides positive spin. Like at this Wuhan quarantine center.
我也非常激动，让他们多跳一会儿，所以他们开始跳的时候，我也非常的激动，很想跟他们一起。
Watching all this unfold is a journalist from Wuhan. He spoke to us on the condition that we hide his identity for fear of reprisal. We'll call him Zhang Minliang.
The coverage has to be positive. Anything that is demoralizing is not allowed to be reported. In regards to the topics we can't touch, basically, there are a lot of them. Every day we receive updates on what topics we can't report on. There are also restrictions from the local authorities. Basically, it's hard to interview the doctors and government servants.
Jiang first heard about the virus from friends who are doctors.
One of them told me the situation in his hospital is very grave. He was complaining to me because some doctors were wearing protective suits and N95 face masks to protect themselves from the infection. But the hospital did not allow it, saying they were creating panic and causing the patients to be afraid.
Zhang says he realized what was happening in his home city was a symptom of a much bigger problem.
In the past few years, we can see that the media in China has been withering. If it was 10 years ago, they had a strong ability to organize, report, and plan. The media had the power to do something good. As time goes by, you realize that if the media had done more investigation and research, the epidemic wouldn't be so serious now.
3月6日晚，在视新冠肺炎。But the government has been pushing a different message, like this report quoting the Wuhan Party Committee Secretary.
要在全市广大市民中深入开展感恩教育，感恩总书记，感恩共产党，听党话，跟党走，形成强大正能量。
Lu Xin is a senior presenter on CGTN, Chinese State Television's international network.
Of course, some media have called China's efforts draconian, heavy-handed, autocratic, but we call them effective.
In a candid interview with 101 East, she concedes Chinese media has made mistakes in its coverage of the virus.
If the media must do a better job, they should learn the lesson, because at the end of the day, it's ordinary people's lives that were harmed, that were at stake.
But the top leaders in China will not be held to account, would they?
I don't know if they did something wrong. I mean, the general public are watching all the time. The thing is not to bring down the system, but to make it better. So because we are all in it, everybody is at stake.
President Xi Jinping made very clear that the priority of China's media was to reflect the thinking of the Communist Party.
We cannot pitch the Chinese Communist Party against the Chinese people or vice versa. It doesn't work like this in China. I see my job is to work for the overall benefits of the Chinese population.
From the start, the government's position has been clear: to stop and smear those who challenge the official version of events. People like Feng Bin, a middle-aged clothes retailer in Wuhan.
大家好，我是方斌。
He decided to investigate and film what state TV wasn't showing. Feng toured the city, visiting different hospitals, showing the chaotic reality for overworked doctors and nurses, and the desperation of patients and their families trying to get treatment anyway, anywhere. And the pain of losing loved ones.
这你家什么人呢？
父亲。
哎呦，
我的父亲。
啊，你的这个一个1万块钱是，我的中完全是啊是，完全
我家的。
完了，估计不上来了，已经没有生命特征，
不上来就来，
没有生命特征了吗？这个也完了，这个完了。
Feng Bin was shaken by what he saw.
这么多，哎呦，这家伙这个也太多了呀，这样。这武昌殡仪馆这里面尸袋，刚才我照给你们看了，现在又多了。刚才3个，现在我数一下啊，尸袋，1、2、3、4、5、6、7、8，有8个。哎呦，这么多就真死了。这是几天？就昨天是吧？
Strict online censorship ensured that Feng's social media account was quickly deleted.
这像昨天晚上7点，大概7点来钟的时候嘛，突然当当当就有人敲我这个门，知道吧？敲门呢，我当时出来，怎么有人敲门呢？然后出来以后呢，我就还留个心眼，我就把那个门窗打开一看，哎呦，好6、7个家伙都是防护服穿好了的，是吧？就要我跟他走。 知道吧？就说这个要去给我这个叫什么？就是我这个去危险地方了，要检查什么之类的。我一看那就完了，肯定是要隔离我。
哎，朋友，测个体温，现在
体温什么都是，我体温没问题啊。你们是哪里？你说清楚哪里的？你哪里的？
你开下门，你开下门。
不，你这样，你拿个身份证来。我不废话，你去拿个身份证来。你别过。
His last video on February the 8th was just 12 seconds long. It featured a scroll of paper with the words,
全民反抗，还政于民.
He hasn't been seen since.
你好，我是陈秋实。
Feng Bin wasn't the only one trying to reveal what was going on. Lawyer Chen Chuxi arrived in Wuhan on the last train before the city was shut down.
为什么要来这儿呢？我之前说过，我的责任是一个公民记者，用我的镜头来亲自见证和记录武汉这次防灾检疫过程当中所发生的真实情况，并且愿意把武汉人民的心声传递出去。前段时间。
Chen shone a light on the government's quarantine measures.
这个方舱医院的形态明显是很像那种战地医院，或者说是，但是这并不适合传染病人居住。传染病人本来就应该直接把他们放在一个隔离的这么一个空间病房里面去，专业的隔离病房。只不过确实没有这个条件，所以才能让他们去回家居家隔离。但是居家隔离如果处理得不好，又很容易造成这种家庭性的感染，一个人感染，一家人都遭殃。所以现在进入这种两难的状况。
But while Chen turned his camera on Wuhan, attention was also turning to him.
我的名字已经彻底成为敏感词，只要带陈秋实3个字，带 CQS， 带我这张脸，在微信上都传播不了。已经有很多人跟我说，我在武汉的视频只要通过微信传播，连号都会封掉，因为最近在中国微信上的谣言确实很多。我是害怕，我前面是病毒，我后边是中国的法律和行政力量。
Then he too disappeared. No one's heard from him since. In a tragic development, the original whistleblower, Dr. Li Wenliang, contracted the virus and died. Chinese social media erupted with anger and sorrow, prompting worldwide grief.
这是一个非常悲哀、悲痛的事情。公民说真话日这样一个来彰显我国宪法公民有言论自由权利这一项，是一个公民最基本的权利。
Hundreds of academics and everyday citizens signed a petition calling for a national day of free speech. Among the signatories was Beijing lawyer Lin Qilei, who recorded this message for us.
这样的公民呼吁，因为体制的原因，可能没有收到任何答复。那么在中国，做这样的联署啊，也有可能坐牢，但是这个我都有心理准备。我认为我这样做，虽然有很多的危险，但是我还是要做的。
1,000 kilometers from Wuhan, Hong Kong has been closely watching what's happening on the mainland. Rarely has Hong Kong seemed so quiet and placid. Easy to forget, this same city has recently been the setting for often violent protests calling for more democratic reform.
Those protests have led to a growing anti-mainland sentiment, and this virus is deepening that sentiment.
The fact is, if you think about it, if China was an open, transparent, democratic nation, then this whole thing might not happen in the first place.
In 2003, Hong Kong was hit by the coronavirus SARS, which also originated on the mainland and killed nearly 800 people worldwide. Back then, Dr. Alfred Wong was still in medical school. Today, he's a frontline medic, treating patients infected with COVID-19.
We split the department into what we call the dirty team and clean team.
What does that mean, the dirty team?
We are dirty. We are responsible for taking care of the patients who have this virus or are suspected to have this virus. The idea is to contain the risk within a small part of the department to avoid catastrophe.
He says he first heard about COVID-19 in December.
So when we start hearing about signs of this disease being out of control, the number of patients are climbing and people are dying, and apparently the authorities in mainland China are trying to cover things up, then we are very much worried.
Alfred's been living in a hotel close to the hospital. He can't risk going home.
Because I'm not only trying to protect my patients, but also trying to protect my family. I have a wife who is pregnant, so the last thing I want is to give her the virus. Yeah, so I don't go home, but we see each other every now and then, like once a week or something. So we still have dinner together, sometimes in a park or at a bench.
Do you sit apart from each other?
Yeah, we stay away from each other 3 to 4 meters. So
that must be so hard, not to reach out and touch her hand.
Yeah, it is hard. It is hard, but
for Alfred, it's a small price to pay compared to the pressures the doctors face on the mainland.
These people who have been trying their very best to speak of the truth and gave their lives doing it, I mean, they are heroes. They're heroes. They will not be forgotten. Very similarly, I don't think the people of China will forget the crime that has been committed.
Crime?
The crime.
You call it a crime?
It is a crime. You don't think so? I mean, to tell all these lies and suppress all these whistleblowers, arresting them, and then cause all these thousands of deaths.
It says that the map demonstrates the staggering reach of the new coronavirus based on flight data, and it's completely wrong.
It's completely wrong.
Professor Masato Kajimoto is trying to contain another virus that's been spreading and mutating: misinformation.
There is a lot of anti-China misinformation going on right now in relation to this coronavirus.
He heads a fact-checking team at Hong Kong University. Since the outbreak of COVID-19, they've been trying to work out what's fake and what's real.
Did you find yourself shouting at the computer screen sometimes when you see this?
All the time, all the time. Yeah, don't report this, it's not true. You know, why did you say that? You know, what evidence do you have?
He says the online rumors and lies about the virus are compounding the panic and fear.
It's a real ecosystem. If you map how information spreads on the internet, you could actually see the organism, how organically it spreads, how it mutates.
And the danger of spreading false information is that it can cost lives.
There are lots of medical information, obviously. Drinking warm water will kill coronavirus. Roasted garlic will prevent you from getting the virus. There are all sorts of misinformation going on right now. This chart is a comparison between flu, common cold, and COVID-19. So for example, runny nose is a symptom of flu and common cold, but not COVID-19. So the claim is that if you have runny nose, don't worry, you don't have the virus. That's not scientifically true at all. So we debunked that. The problem is that kind of content is often picked up by traditional media outlets.
Masato says spreading misinformation is not only easy, but lucrative.
There are lots of financial incentives for what we call bad actors. Basically, they want to have a sensational content that people click all the time because that brings in ad revenues for them. So they churn out 600-700 stories a day. So it's really hard to win this fight.
Masato plays me a video purportedly showing family members who died from the virus in Wuhan.
Video seems to be authentic. We sort of blur the faces because it's actually that person. So this happened in December, but it had nothing to do with coronavirus.
In fact, his team established the family died from carbon monoxide poisoning. But by then, the video had been viewed more than 100,000 times online before it was finally taken down.
If you live in a country where press freedom is limited, if the information is controlled or censored, people don't know what to trust.
As every country around the world struggles to respond to the pandemic, China claims it's winning the war on COVID-19. Now it's offering expertise on how to defeat the virus. But one important lesson comes not from China's successes, but from its failure. That trust and truth are powerful allies in the fight against this invisible enemy.